This is an Ayatollah who only a few weeks ago slaughtered 30,000 of his people to repress them from protesting.
That number's not confirmed, so you regurgitating it is very questionable, Piers. Where'd you get that number from?
How many do you... Okay, well, how many do you think were killed?
We don't know the exact number. But to say that 30,000 people were slaughtered during those short weeks is ridiculous to me. Iran has put out specific names of individuals who have been killed, and it's around 3,000. We don't know what the exact number is, but you really think 30,000 people were killed? Let's not mistake what actually happened in Syria. Okay, the Obama administration began arming al-Qaeda terrorists who actually fought our soldiers in Iraq, and now we have a supposedly former al-Qaeda terrorist as the leader of Syria. We didn't do good things in the Middle East, including in Syria. So Mike Pence is a complete and utter joke in what he said during that interview. Iran did not pose a threat to the United States. Their ballistic missiles did not have the capability to reach the United States. And the notion that this was all about Iran's weapons was a lie from the very beginning. This is about a regime change war on behalf of Israel. Israel would like to be the hegemon in the Middle East. And the United States is spilling blood and basically using its treasure to help Israel build an empire that I guarantee you will turn around and, we'll suffer the consequences of that at some point. But
Anna Kasparian walked into Piers Morgan's studio outnumbered, Piers playing host and opponent, Goldie throwing smears from the jump, and an Israeli panelist loading up in the wings. And she didn't crack once. The debate was supposed to be about U.S. strikes on Iran, the legality of regime change war, and who's actually driving American foreign policy in the Middle East. Instead, the panel kept trying to make it about whether Anna was a propaganda mouthpiece for daring to ask the questions every serious foreign policy analyst asks. She asked them anyway, and if you want to understand why this moment matters, not just as a debate clip, but as a case study in how media narratives get controlled and who gets to challenge them, you need to watch this all the way through. If this is the kind of analysis you're tired of not seeing on mainstream TV, subscribe and stay with us. We don't let the framing slide. My full breakdown is at the end, and trust me, it's worth it.
Anna Kasparian, your response to Mike Pence there, laying out a moral and legal justification for these attacks on Iran.
First, I would like to ask Goldie whether she apologizes for laughing as Cenk Uygur, on the last episode he was on, was talking about dead American soldiers as a result of wars that the U.S. gets dragged into on behalf of Israel. Goldie, do you apologize for laughing at the thought of dead American soldiers?
Anna, no one's buying your jihadi propaganda lies. Everyone knows that Elika and I were laughing
at it's jihadi propaganda to be concerned about dead American soldiers who were forced to fight on behalf of Israel. Interesting. Okay. To answer your question,
Can I answer the question?
175 little girls have been slaughtered in an Iranian school. That was the first Israeli strike that took place.
Hang on one second. Anna, hang on one second. You asked her a question. So I will let Goldie respond. Then you can respond to my question.
Well, she responded by claiming I'm sharing jihadi propaganda. I'm talking about dead American soldiers. So do you apologize or not?
Okay.
May I respond
Goldie,
without
quick
interruption?
response.
Thank you. So we were laughing at Cenk's bizarre anti-Semitic tropes about how Israel is responsible for every single incident that happens in the war. We were not laughing at
That's not what he said.
American soldiers. And you actually edited the video. So there you go. Everyone knows that you're lying. You're a laughing stock. You're a joke.
Everyone can go back and watch the full episode for Pierce's show. Right.
Okay.
The only ones who were respecting General Wesley Clark were myself and.
Okay. You know what? Look, Anna, you said your piece about Goldie. She's responded. Let's get back to the bigger picture, which I'm sure the other panelists would prefer us to do. Your response to Mike Pence, but both on the moral argument, because I do think that there are lots of people I know, including many on the left, who can understand a moral argument for getting rid of what has been a ruthless, bloodthirsty, vile regime that has caused terror not just to its own people but to the wider world, but hesitate about whether this is the legal thing to do. So I don't think it's just people on the right saying, go, go, go. People on the left saying, well, I'm glad he's gone, and I'm glad the Ayatollah's gone. I'm glad a lot of the top leadership have gone. but I'm not sure that this is legal, and the precedent being set is very dangerous.
My view of this current war against Iran is that Iran did not pose a threat to the United States. Their ballistic missiles did not have the capability to reach the United States. And the notion that this was all about Iran's weapons was a lie from the very beginning. This is about a regime change war on behalf of Israel. Israel would like to be the hegemon in the Middle East. And the United States is spilling blood and basically using its treasure to help Israel build an empire that I guarantee you will turn around and, well, we'll suffer the consequences of that at some point. But we're suffering the consequences of it right now. I mean, the first thing Israel did is strike an Iranian girls' school, killing 175 people. That's according to the New York Times, which typically likes to bury the wrongdoings of the Israeli government and military. I don't see this as a just war. I don't think that President Donald Trump has a plan for what happens following the slaughter of the Ayatollah or the destruction of the Iranian regime. In fact, he has said as much. He said it is not the U.S.'s job to figure out who leads Iran next, which means that there will be a power vacuum. And we know how that plays out in other countries where we've done similar things. And in regard to Syria, let's not mistake what actually happened in Syria. OK, the Obama administration began arming al-Qaeda terrorists who actually fought our soldiers in Iraq. And now we have a supposedly former al-Qaeda terrorist as the leader of Syria. We didn't do good things in the Middle East, including in Syria. So Mike Pence is a complete and utter joke in what he said during that interview.
Your colleague Cenk Uygur, who you referenced at the top of the show, he did a tweet which even I recalled. I like Cenk a lot, but he called the Ayatollah courageous because he hadn't gone on his knees to Israel. Did you agree? I mean, do you think the Ayatollah Khamenei was a courageous man?
Well, he never capitulated to the Israelis, and we live under a government where, regardless of which party is in power, is on its knees on behalf of Israel. So I understand what he's talking about. He's talking about government leaders, a country's leader in the case of Iran. As much as I did not agree with the Ayatollah, I'm not a religious person, and I certainly don't like extremism or supremacy of any kind. The fact of the matter is he didn't embarrass his people by getting down on his knees to pleasure Israel, as our leaders here in the United States do. So I understand the point that he was trying to make. And I think if you talk to a lot of Americans, they are embarrassed by the fact that our leadership rarely represents our best interests and seems to prioritize the best interests of Israel in every instance. And I think that what we're experiencing right now is a good example of that.
But this is an Ayatollah who only a few weeks ago slaughtered 30,000 of his people to repress them from protesting.
That number's not confirmed, so you regurgitating it is very questionable, Piers. Where'd you get that number from?
Well, how many do you... Okay, well, how many do you think were killed?
We don't know the exact number. But to say that 30,000 people were slaughtered during those short weeks is ridiculous to me. Iran has put out specific names of individuals who have been killed, and it's around 3,000. We don't know what the exact number is, but you really think 30,000 people were killed? You're not going to question that at all? 30,000?
Well, I'm curious, if you don't think it's 30,000, how many do you think it was?
I don't know the exact number. No one knows the exact number.
But you know...
But
if you don't know the number, how do you know? Well, hang on a second. Hang on a second.
I've said multiple times. I'm not going to hang on for a second. I've said multiple times. I don't agree or like the regime in Iran. That doesn't mean that it's untrue that they never capitulated to what Israel demanded of them. Whereas here in the United States, we literally spill blood and use our treasure on behalf of Israel. That's the point that Cenk was trying to make. And I think it's a pretty accurate point.
Okay, you can make that point. I'm like questioning the... Hang on 1 second, please. I'm questioning the use of the word courageous about a ruthless, despotic monster. And I'm curious why you are so confident it's not 30,000 people who were killed, but you have no idea how many people were killed. How can you be sure it wasn't 30,000?
No, I don't. I don't know how many people were killed. You don't know how many people were killed.
Right, so you don't know it wasn't 30,000.
The highest number you've heard is questionable, to say the least. Especially when you know that Mossad was on the ground, there were armed terrorists on the ground, security forces were killed during those shootings. Look, the hyena's laughing again. Anyway, but to just regurgitate the number that is being perpetuated by the Israelis is ridiculous to me. We don't know the exact number, so rather than regurgitate it, we can say that there was a high casualty count. We don't know the exact number. It's that simple.
But you used to regurgitate the numbers. Hang on 1 second. Hang on. Let me finish. You did regurgitate, Anna, with respect, all the numbers given to you by the Hamas-run health authority of Palestinian casualties without any hesitation. And
which is confirmed by the Israelis, Piers.
Confirmation.
That was confirmed by the Israelis. You know that, right?
No, it isn't.
Well,
the IDF confirmed that number, right?
They were broadly confirmed eventually. But my point is, you seem very, very keen.
They were
because
not.
The Hamas-run health ministry is very
here's my
careful.
Point. Here's my point.
Yeah,
Anna, here's my point. I don't understand your apparent keenness to downplay the ruthlessness of the Ayatollah or Cenk's enthusiasm for calling this guy courageous.
I'm not downplaying it. I'm just not going to regurgitate Israeli propaganda as you're doing right now, Piers.
Piers, can I have a word?
Jonathan Conricus. Yeah, Jonathan, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, since my country has been mentioned so many times by people of questionable moral backgrounds and motivations, I'd like to say a few things about my perspective.
Oh, that's rich coming from a guy who defends the slaughter,
Anna,
the mass
I didn't
slaughter
interrupt
of
you.
Yeah,
I didn't interrupt you. I didn't use bad language like a little girl like you did. So please, stay in your lane. I didn't interrupt you and stay out of mine.
Make your point. Hurry up.
No, I don't have to hurry up, and I don't take orders from you, Anna. And I would speak because you've spoken a lot and you've said a lot of nonsense, and I want to give my perspective on what's going on.
Right.
And it's ridiculous to frame this.
Debunk anything
It is ridiculous to frame this as something that is whereby Israel is in the driving seat. This is an American-led operation.
It is.
Where there are clearly defined goals by the U.S. that serve U.S. strategic interest. That's one set of issues that is separate from the ones that is relevant to Israel. There's a lot of overlap, but here's the Israeli perspective. We live in our national homeland, which we have about 3,000 years of documented and archaeological history that connects us to it. Yet we are surrounded by about 5 or 6 different terrorist organizations that are funded by Iran, by the Islamic regime, who all operate against Israel, killing our civilians, harassing our people, infringing on our sovereignty, and all conniving and trying to bring about the destruction of the state of Israel. These organizations, Hamas, Islamic Jihad, Hezbollah, former Iranian proxies in Syria, the Houthis in Yemen, Iranian proxies in Iraq, are all funded by, orchestrated by, and armed by Iran. And the overarching idea is to annihilate the state of Israel. The Islamic Republic has an outspoken goal, which they have been pursuing for the better part of 30 years, to destroy the state of Israel. They're not just saying it, they are doing it, and they have been enacting. They have been squandering the resources of the Iranian people. They have been mismanaging the funds of Iran, neglecting Iranian people, and they have been prioritizing militants and terrorists in Gaza, in Lebanon, in Judea and Samaria, in Syria, in Iraq, in Yemen, and other places around the world. Why? Because they have this feverish focus, this sick focus on Israel, trying to destroy and annihilate the Jewish state. When Iranians say, we want to destroy Israel, we listen to it and we take it with real value because we understand that they're serious. And I'll finish with this, Piers. The motivation from Israel is, we want to live in our homeland without Iranian terror organizations, without Iranian ballistic missiles,
Lebanon,
and without
Syria,
Iranian nuclear
Jordan,
weapons that are aimed at us.
Gaza.
Does your homeland include the West Bank? Does your homeland include the West Bank?
Let me... I'm going to come to you.
Most definitely.
Yes,
our homeland
right?
includes
Gaza,
Judea and Samaria.
and Gaza,
yes, if you're asking about Judea and Samaria, if you ask about Judea and Samaria, yes, that is part of the Jewish
which the whole
homeland.
world thinks is not yours, which the whole world believes is not yours. You're the expansionist state, you're the aggressor
no,
state,
we're not expansionist
you're the terrorist state,
at all.
and you're financed by the United States.
People that came back to our homeland.
That's
we were
right.
expelled from it. And we came back to our homeland.
Okay, don't talk.
I don't think
Jonathan,
we need
you've had
to pay excuses.
Jonathan,
for it.
I gave you good time, Jonathan. I want to let Glenn finish.
Let's talk about what actually happened in that room, because this wasn't just a debate. It was a masterclass in how power protects itself through media. And Anna Kasparian just gave everyone watching a live demonstration of how to dismantle it. Start with the 30,000 number, because that exchange alone tells you everything you need to know about how this panel operated. Piers Morgan threw out the figure of 30,000 Iranians killed by the Ayatollah during protest crackdowns like it was settled history, and when Anna pushed back and said the number wasn't confirmed, the entire panel acted like she was defending a dictator. She wasn't. She was right. The most credibly sourced figure for deaths during Iran's 2019 protest crackdown, reported by Reuters using internal Iranian government communications, sits at approximately 1,500. Human rights organizations have documented figures in the low thousands across multiple protest cycles combined. The 30,000 figure has no credible sourcing. None. Piers couldn't produce a source when pressed, so instead he flipped the burden of proof and kept asking Anna how many she thought died. As if demanding your opponent disprove your unverified claim is a legitimate debate move. It isn't. That's not journalism. It isn't. That's propaganda in a tailored suit. And then, and this is the part that should make your blood boil, Piers turned around and accused Anna of uncritically accepting Hamas health ministry figures for Gaza. The difference? Those figures were corroborated by the Israeli government's own assessments, by the United Nations, by multiple independent human rights organizations, and by American intelligence. The methodology was scrutinized and validated. The 30,000 Iran figure was validated by nobody. Piers made the exact mistake he accused Anna of making, and nobody called him a propaganda mouthpiece for it. That asymmetry is not accidental. That's the whole game. And the game kept going when Anna refused to let the legal question die, because that was the question the entire panel was desperate to bury. What is the legal basis for these strikes on Iran? Under the War Powers Resolution, the president must notify Congress within 48 hours of committing armed forces and cannot sustain action beyond 60 days without authorization. There's been no declaration of war. There has been no congressional authorization. The administration's attempt to stretch the 2001 AUMF past 3 days after September 11th to cover strikes on Iran is a legal fiction that even conservative constitutional scholars have rejected because Iran was not responsible for September 11th. 19 of the 20 hijackers were Saudi. Not one was Iranian. Not one. And if the actual goal is regime change, removing a government rather than neutralizing a documented imminent threat, that is a war of aggression under international law, rules that the United States helped write after World War II precisely because we understood what unchecked regime change does to the world. The panel wanted to skip all of that and debate whether the Ayatollah was evil. Of course he was. That is not the legal standard for launching a war, and every person on that panel knew it. What makes it worse is that Trump has publicly stated it is not America's job to determine who leads Iran after this conflict. The President of the United States launched military action against a nation of 90 million people with no stated plan for what follows. We have seen this movie. We watched the Bush administration disband the Iraqi military in 2003, create a power vacuum, and directly enable the conditions that produced ISIS. We watched the Libya intervention leave a failed state with open slave markets and a migrant crisis that destabilized Europe for years. We watched the Obama administration's Syria policy arm opposition factions with ties to jihadist networks, something Anna stated plainly and correctly. And now the leader of Syria emerged from exactly that chaos. History does not grade intentions, it grades outcomes. And the documented, measurable outcome of U.S. military intervention in the Middle East without a post-conflict plan is catastrophe, every single time. Asking for that plan before the bombs drop is not propaganda. It is the only sane position available to anyone who has been paying attention. Then there's Goldie, who responded to Anna's direct question about laughing at dead American soldiers by calling her position jihadi propaganda. Not a denial, not a counter-argument, a smear. That phrase exists for one reason: to make the original question unspeakable, to associate the person asking it with terrorism, so that no one has to actually engage with what they said. It has been used against veterans, against Gold Star families, against sitting members of Congress. It is the last resort of someone who has already lost the argument on substance and knows it. Anna didn't take the bait. She called it out, noted Goldie's refusal to apologize, and moved straight back to the policy. That discipline is exactly what the panel was counting on her not to have. And on the Israel question, because it has to be said with full factual clarity, yes, Iran has funded Hamas, Hezbollah, the Houthis, and other proxy forces. That is documented and not seriously disputed. Iran's leadership has made explicit statements about the elimination of the Israeli state. Those statements are real and they matter. But the New York Times, not a publication hostile to Israel, reported that Israeli strikes hit an Iranian girls' school, killing 175 people. The International Court of Justice issued an advisory opinion in 2024 stating that Israel's continued occupation of Palestinian territories is unlawful under international law. The entire UN General Assembly voted to demand Israel end that occupation. When Jonathan called Anna's moral background questionable for raising these points, he was implicitly calling the ICJ questionable. He was calling the UN General Assembly questionable. He was calling the New York Times questionable. The record does not change based on who finds it inconvenient. Here's what this whole thing comes down to. Anna Kasparian walked into a hostile room, faced a smear, a manipulated statistic, a legal question being deliberately avoided, a war with no plan, and a panelist practically vibrating with indignation. And she handled every single one of them with the same tool, the actual record. She didn't perform outrage. She made an argument. She cited sources. She held the thread. And the panel hated her for it because there is nothing more threatening to people who rely on framing and emotional manipulation than someone who simply refuses to be framed.